babe. I am so excited. Totally fangirling over here. We have Mandi Money on the podcast today. Can you believe it?
Whoop.
You made it happen.
Woo!
Slid into my DMs.
Listen, I love a good DM. Okay. If you do it the right way and you're genuine, I feel like amazing things can happen.
I feel you have a really good job of like reaching out to people that you don't necessarily know on Instagram and actually getting a response, because I don't think that would work so well for me. I never would have slid into her DMs, only because
you're a man.
You have to catch people at the right time. I slid into, before sliding into DMs, I emailed someone I really admired, didn't hear back for like a year. I found out she had a brain aneurysm. And I was like, oh, she hates me. But it turns out, so you never know. It's the timing, So even if they don't reach out, I'm constantly telling people to like cold LinkedIn connect and send messages and stuff. And there is this fear, like, what if I don't hear back? And I'm like, if that's the worst thing that happens, just do it.
That's my motto. What's the worst that can happen? Also, my connection request with you on LinkedIn is pending. So now that we're going to be best friends, I need that fixed. Okay.
Okay, great. Call me out on it right now.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll get in there.
Okay, perfect. Well, listen, we have a lot to talk about. Mandi is a big deal. And
true.
We love Brown Ambition. We love MandiMoney Makers. Listen, I will be up in my bed anytime you do, a free workshop or anything. I'm there in the bed with my headphones on. And I'm like, you got to put the kids to sleep. I've got a session. I've got to listen to what Mandi has to say. So huge fan, so honored and delighted to have you here while making a whole human and all the things.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So let's get into this bio so that everybody understands who you are and why I'm so excited and why you're such a big deal. Okay. All right. Mandi Woodruff-Santos is a globally recognized career expert, founder of the Mandi Money Makers, and co-host of the almost three. We're going to speak it into existence.
Today we found out we won.
Oh my God.
Congratulations.
I voted. Yay. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's exciting.
Okay. So 3-time WEBBY award-winning podcast, Brown Ambition. We will link it because it's amazing. And I love the conversations you and Tiffany have. Through her online career coaching community, the Mandi Money Makers, she is on a mission to help women of color achieve their wildest financial and career ambitions. With over 6 million podcast downloads and over 65,000 followers across Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and more, Mandi has created a unique community of BIPOC baddies ready to stop settling for less and level up in their careers. As a negotiation and career expert, Mandi is a regular contributor to Yahoo Finance Live and has been featured on the New York Times, CNBC, CNN, The Dr. Phil Show, ABC World News Tonight, CBS This Morning, Business Insider, Essence, Teen Vogue, and more. Girl, do you sleep?
Yes, lots.
Maybe that's the
Let's keep this in perspective. This took a decade to build that bio. Okay, so I'm not doing that every day. But yeah,
the overnight success that took 10 years, right?
Please.
Well, listen, that bio is on fire. I'm so proud of you. I feel like I've been on this journey with you and I've seen the growth and just everything that you've done for the community. And I just think it's really incredible. So you have so much to be proud of.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I receive it.
Yay. So we want to kick off with your first or earliest money memory today.
Yeah, whenever people ask me this question, I tend to, there's a couple and they're both like kind of sad, but the first one is I remember I'm a child of divorce and I always want to say it like Adele. Divorce.
That's for both of us.
Divorce, babe.
Divorce, babe. Divorce. Yeah. So I remember my parents constantly fighting about money. And that was definitely one of the precipitating factors that triggered their divorce. But I was around, I don't know, like between 7 and 10. And they had a particularly bad fight. And I had this like pencil shaped, like a Crayola crayon shaped piggy bank. And I remember I left it out overnight with like a little note for my mom. Like, I hope this helps. Please don't fight anymore. I told you it was sad.
I was not expecting that.
I know. And then the other one that I tell is like my mom going to JCPenney and like we would go together and she was always looking for like a bigger accordion wallet, like the ones that could fit more cards. You know, like the big fat suckers that they used to sell. Do they still sell them?
Probably.
Those are some of the, those moments for me.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
money was in high supply and not necessarily something that sparked much joy
Mm.
in my youth. But that all changed when I learned I had control in my 20s. It was great.
I always find it so
Yes.
interesting when you hear about, people's early money memories because, two individuals can have the same or similar money memory, but how they respond to it can be, completely different. Like for me, like I was fortunate enough that even though my mom raised my brother and I from, basically age 5 is when my parents got divorced, that luckily money was not an issue for us. My mom was a college professor and she was, financially responsible. So, but, her frugality is what I picked up on because, with her being a single mom, making sure that my brother and I had everything.
Yeah.
Very frugal woman still to this day, even though she doesn't need to be, but that's exactly how I am.
Because she had no safety net. Yeah, of course. It was just her. So
Yeah.
I just want to, I just want to like acknowledge single moms. I just think that they're freaking, or single parents in general, just freaking superheroes, what they have to
Now
go
that
through.
now that I'm a father, I tell her every day, I was like, I have no idea how you raised my brother. Literally no idea how
My
you did it.
husband's really afraid of me dying now. Like he thinks about my mortality way more than ever because he's like, you can't go anywhere. Like,
Yeah, you can't do it
this
alone. We
without
can't
you.
do it alone.
I'm
No.
like,
I don't know how people
I tell all the
dang.
time, I was like, she would be the better single parent than I would. I don't think I wouldn't be.
I don't know about that.
But do you think that men do because, we're there? But if you had to, you would rise. Don't you worry. You'd be the
Well,
best.
hopefully that's the
Yeah.
case. So
Hopefully never has to, but I'm in my hormonal era, so I think about the worst all the
I
time.
know.
You want to doomsday together?
You're like, what's the show that we used to watch, This Is
Stop.
Us, where they would do the worst case scenario and they like would go really dark. Did you watch that
Oh
show?
yeah. What are they? Beth and Randall.
Mm.
Yes. I love that, honestly. And I've got a friend of mine, Farnoosh Tarabi. She's another really excellent podcaster and personal finance educator. And she has a book coming out called Healthy State of Panic. And I just love the title and the
Ooh.
premise because I believe, and through my own coaching, like as a career coach and negotiation coach, a lot of my practice and my philosophies are based on being ready for what if, but not necessarily letting that keep you in bed under the covers. Like, why do I even bother? But how can that propel you forward? How can that make you make smart decisions with your career so that you are better prepared? Because I like to live in the space of optimism, but also reality.
Yeah,
I think
as a
that's so
financial
smart.
advisor, I'm like, I plan for worst case scenario. Often
Exactly.
that's not going to happen, but if we can get through worst case scenario, then you're good.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah. Well, and two, sometimes the planning aspect of planning for the worst helps lessen that fear and anxiety because then you do end up prepared, right? And then when you're not faced with the worst, then you can celebrate. So
exactly. You think about the worst long enough to prepare and then you let it go because you can't ultimately predict or, but it makes you feel like, that you've got the safety net, that you've got things in place, and then, but the point, the key is not to get stuck in that cycle of only living in the space of bad things will happen. Right.
Yeah. Cause that's debilitating and not healthy.
I also say like a lot of people have anxiety around money for like two main reasons. One, the lack of financial literacy. So, they just simply don't understand and don't know what they're supposed to do. But then also the second part is they don't have a plan. So, having a plan in place obviously helps lessen a lot of that anxiety.
Yeah, I totally agree. The hard part is convincing people to do that work when they're just in survival mode every day, doing their best,
Yeah.
So you do that work.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, one of his favorite things to say is, if I have to convince you that you need a financial advisor, you're not ready. Because he's like, you need to come to me knowing that you are ready for help. And he said, we were planning for another event that we have this week. And he made the analogy of, you don't go to a personal trainer when you've got a 6-pack of abs and, 11% body fat. You go when your goal is, if to get there, if that's what it is. And so same thing, you don't go to a financial advisor once you have millions. You go when you have the means to pay for one and you're ready to receive the guidance and the education. So, yeah.
Either way, I think sometimes it happens the other way too. I think sometimes especially with, me and my career, it wasn't until I had extra money to think about that I was like, okay, maybe I should be doing something with this. And then you start thinking, what else can be done beyond the 401k? And you start getting like a little ambitious. And then I think that's where you need someone to like rein you in and remind you that, you know, the basic vanilla financial, you know, practices are really the sexiest things you could be doing, you know. So
Yeah.
I
maybe not
always say,
crypto.
you know, good financial planning is boring.
It's not sexy.
It
Yeah.
really is.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, Mandi, so you mentioned the bio taking you 10 years to get to, right? Education.
Yeah.
And the training that you're doing with your MandiMoney Makers, you were a financial journalist, editorial leader. Talk to us about where MandiMoney Makers came from, where that started, why that started, and how it's grown over the years.
Well, I'm a sucker for alliteration and I'm lazy. So Mandi Money Makers just came from that. So I started my career. Well, I studied as a journalist. And when I moved to New York, I sort of accidentally found my way into covering personal finance. It was the Great Recession. And I learned that I really loved it. It was juicy and there was enough to sink my teeth into. I felt like I was challenged and I felt like there was a need for it to have really great reporters and reporting of what was happening especially for millennials, for my generation, our generation. And then, you know, I did really well. I spent the next decade really building a brand and a reputation as a great financial journalist. And then I wanted to be a leader. I knew I had the stuff to be a leader. So I pursued an opportunity to run content for a startup. And that sort of kicked off a 6-year period where I was on the other side, not necessarily writing as much, but managing writers and managing a team and, you know, overseeing strategy. And that introduced me to a whole different side of corporate and went through an acquisition and it was all great. And then around 2021, you know, I took what I thought was going to be a dream job for myself and ended up not being a dream job. And I was so lucky that when it didn't work out, I didn't have to immediately scramble to get another, you know, 9 to 5. I had time to reflect, and it was with my financial advisor. Shout out to Brandon and the work that y'all do. My financial advisor, Helen, that we had a meeting after I decided not to go back. And she was the one to say, you could do this. Like, you know, I've seen what you've done in 5 years. And if you want to branch out on your own, you know, you've got the savings for it. You've got something you can do. You can do it. And I was like, okay. And, you know, I really credit my 22 through 28-year-old self for making some really key financial choices that enabled me to be in a position where I could start my own business and not have to, you know, go back and work for someone else because I didn't want to at that time. So I spent 2021, I got some consulting clients to, you know, bring some income in immediately. And then I played, and then I wanted to see, could I talk about career? Could I help people and coach them? I had been doing it for so long through Brown Ambition. I've always been the 9 to 5 girly, and Tiffany was always the business baddie. So we had a great kind of, you know, you listen.
Yeah.
We had a great sort of, we could just very complementary to one another with our skills and our knowledge. And then I started to offer free sessions. I like posted on IG, 200 women signed up, and I was doing free half-hour coaching sessions through like 6 months, over a 6-month period.
Wow.
And it was the best sort of focus grouping for me. And I really wanted to get into the heart of what women were going through, women of color, what was plaguing us in our careers, what kept us up at night, what we needed. And, you know, it was unique. It was a sense of isolation and the sense of, you know, what the compounding impact of being the only one or being one of few for years and years and years throughout your career, and creating this sense of like, I'm lonely. I want community. I want connection. I want more confidence, and not really having a place to go for that. So from that, I decided to launch my community. So it's not just a career coaching course or a place where I, you know, do group coaching, but it truly is a place where these women from so many diverse backgrounds, so many different countries now. I've got makers in Kenya, Nigeria, Australia. So
amazing.
It's great. And we gather together and really lift one another up. And that is what I think is really unique about my community and my program, because I truly listened to what women were wanting. And it wasn't just teach me how to negotiate. It was teach me how to survive after the negotiation, you know, teach me how to, you know, have a support system in place so that when and if something goes wrong, I have a place to go to for support. and to bounce back from.
I love that. I do want to pivot back. All of that was amazing. I want to pivot back to what you said at the very beginning with your money memory, you putting your Crayola piggy bank on the table, trying to help mom. You were living in New York. You were young. I've listened to
Georgia. I'm from Georgia.
Yes. But then when you moved to New York and you were working,
yes.
Salary wise, like you were making a good living, but it's New York. So you weren't, right? Like,
Well, I wasn't, and it's also New York, so doubly so. I was not making a great living. I was making like 30K. Yeah.
But you had savings. How did you learn that you needed savings and how to be fiscally responsible so that you didn't have to go back to a toxic work environment when you were like, this is not working?
Yeah, especially since it wasn't, I guess, modeled for you growing up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that I had enough. I don't know. I was always the kind of person to observe and to really see how people in my family were responding to certain events and then critically think about how I would do it differently. And I felt like when I was in my 20s, I felt like I had the stage now, like I'm going to show them I can do things differently and I'll do it this way. Go to college and not have a bunch of kids and, and try to be fiscally responsible. Of course, I thought I knew it all and I was like perfect and whatever. I obviously wasn't.
Like all of us when we're young.
Right.
Like every 20-year-old.
But for me, when I moved to New York, I got a job. I got a job during the Great Recession at a magazine, which was my dream. And 3 months into working it, I was laid off. And for me, that was a really early wake up call that if I didn't get it together sooner rather than later, I was no different than other people that I had judged, like it doesn't have to be because you did something wrong. It's just that, something out of your control happened and you just didn't happen to have what you needed to push to bounce back. And I remember that feeling of financial insecurity and being like, I thought I was going to be different, know? And so from there, it was really dedicating myself to education. And like I said, I accidentally ended up covering personal finance a couple of years later. And that really gave me such a great, such a great education. I literally got to talk to people like yourself, Brandon, every day and pick their brains about what we should be doing. And I took their advice for free. Like,
very good.
I'll post you an article, but
that's what to
what I
do
should do if I've been let go. And I learned about, the 401k and I learned about, contributing 10% and how compounding interest works. And little by little, it felt like I was unlocking cheat codes that hadn't really been available or taught to me, like so many others in my position. And that's really what made a difference. I don't know. I mean, I do and I don't. I don't know if I hadn't had to do it for work, I don't know how quickly I would have, really embraced financial education. I was definitely attracted to, like, there was a lot of bloggers that came out. Tiffany, for example, her Budgetnista blog. I met her because I wrote about her for Business Insider when I was a reporter there, because I was looking for cool, financial educators. But I really am grateful that I had that opportunity to make it my job to get smarter about money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that.
I was actually living in New York during the Great Recession as well.
Okay, we survived.
Yeah.
Barely made it out.
I was only there for a few months. Then I was like, I don't think this is quite for me. So.
Oh, really? A few months? Scaredy cat.
I was there for, when I say a few, probably like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
That's pish posh. That's an internship. I'm just kidding. Fine. Where do y'all live now?
We're in North
Raleigh.
Yep. Right outside of Raleigh.
I just read the book on the top shelf and I'm like, duh.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was like, what book? Yeah. That's where we are. It's a great city. If you're ever here, definitely let us know.
The Carolinas are popping, man. Everyone wants to live in the Carolinas now. And Georgia.
Cost of living is not bad.
Yeah, the cost of living.
I know. Don't have to tell me, but I married a New York City government worker, so I'm a little stuck for now.
Yeah.
It was interesting how you were talking about as far as the obtaining the knowledge as far as from a financial literacy standpoint, because even so for myself, I came from upper middle class family. School for the most part came fairly easy to me. So I would say, I did well in school, and still none of those aspects were really actually taught to me. Like the aspect of being able to save and not spend more than what you make. I saw that through my mom, but like the more deeper stuff, as far as like understanding with your 401k plan and stuff like that, I didn't get that till I was probably I didn't get into finance until I was 29. And so
Okay.
like a couple of years prior to that is when I started to actually really pay attention to that. And it's just crazy to me that something that's so important, even if you go through quote unquote the right route for schooling wise, you still don't learn it.
Yeah. And you think that you got a job and you're doing, like, that's the goal, right? Is to get a job and get income. And then you're looking at this paycheck and you're like, now how am I supposed to like get that house that everyone has and have the babies and pay for all these things with this paycheck? And so the key is really understanding how to grow your wealth. And for me, it was a key to helping me understand or start to think of my career as a wealth building engine, not just like one of the best ways besides budgeting to increase your net worth is to make more. And that really became apparent to me early in my career. Like, oh, if I just stay here, I'm not getting very far. I'm not going to be able to do these fun, investing things to the extent that I want to, so that I have some financial security. And so that's when I started to embrace quitting and quit a lot.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue, because obviously we want to talk about not quiet quitting. I know how you feel about that, but intentionally quitting, right? And why that's so important. And Brandon all the time is telling people like, hey, every 2 to 3 years, you've got to test the market. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to see, if you can get a competitive offer. So where did you learn that? Was that through your role in finance and production, or was that just something that came from within where you're like, no, I'm going to test the waters and negotiate?
Yeah, I've been asked that before. Even my therapist was like, why do you do those things? Like, why are you okay with just like starting over? And I was like, I don't know. Isn't that your job to figure me out? But,
you're like, I'm paying you for this.
Here's what I came up with. And it's interesting because I have always been the kind of person to be okay with starting over. And I think it's because I was a part of like a household that, parents got divorced when I was 10. I moved to a whole new school, and then I moved schools through high school 3 times, went to 3 high schools.
Wow.
And so I got kind of addicted to new beginnings and like a new chapter. And I was very romantic. And I'm a writer. I was like, this is my chance. I'll be a whole different person in Henry County, Georgia than I was in Fayette County, Georgia. And I'll reinvent myself. And then for college, it was the same thing. And college is 4 years and it feels like a fun little chapter. And then you go off, I travel, and I moved to New York from Georgia, and it felt like another new beginning. And I think with my career, I just got a little antsy after a while, and I started to wonder what could be more fun, what could be the next challenge, like sort of always looking for the next fun beginning. And lucky for me, that mentality also opened me up to the reality that when you are willing to move and you don't stay complacent, that it can really exponentially expose you to opportunities for higher income. When companies are actively wanting to poach you while you're currently employed, my hair is soaking wet, so now my hands are anyway. They can.
But curls are popping.
But I took a shower today, so let's be grateful for the small things. This has been a minute. For y'all, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, not for my husband, for you guys. Yeah. So and then really seeing like, oh damn, this little 10%, if I'm lucky, not even 10%, like 5% annual raise is peanuts compared to this 30% raise I can get if I move on to the next. And so that just began I just had a really healthy perception of new beginnings are okay. And you don't actually have to burn bridges, and you can maintain relationships and still have a really very diverse career where you are gaining new skills and becoming all that more in demand and unique, and have more value to, your next employer.
Yeah, a lot of people don't seem to realize that old sentiment of like, staying at a company for 30 years and showing your loyalty is the best route to go, when in reality now switching jobs, every few years is what's going to actually increase your salary significantly. If you're not doing that, then you're missing out on a lot of, potential income that you could be having.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't work for Don Lemon. He was there 17 years. They said, bye.
Oh my gosh. Scandal of the Mondays. Yeah. Geez.
But I see that and I'm like, see, no one's safe. Like,
no,
I'm always finding examples to support my, what is it called? You're always looking for
theory
proof that you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say you have to look out for yourself. Like if it comes down to the bottom line is either the company or you, they're going to get rid of you. So you should always focus on what's best for you.
Yeah. And as people of color, especially, I say that we can't afford to we really can't afford to be loyal or to expect, stability from our employer, because I think we're the most at the financial edges. We're on the financial edge when these situations happen, and we are often struggling more than any other group to bounce back. So like we have the most to lose, and we'll have the hardest paths back to, another job if we let that happen. So that's why I'm so passionate about speaking specifically to women of color, because I just don't want them to feel disempowered or like they have to start all over. I'm all about creating a great, sound, professional foundation so that not if, but when something happens like that, you're not going to get caught off guard, and you are prepared as best you can be.
I love, I don't remember, you have so many programs because again, you're just killing it. So I don't remember which webinar I was on, but I loved your advice about, being active on LinkedIn and having everything updated and putting yourself out there so that people are coming to you and you don't have to actively go and search, right? And I was talking to a girlfriend yesterday. She's in a really bad place professionally. She could leave financially, but I was like, I'm going to look at your LinkedIn. Her last post was from a year ago, no professional headshot, no bio or anything about, what she's done for the last 7 years, et cetera.
At least she had one.
I mean,
some people ain't got one.
True. That's true. So, silver lining there, but I was like, we've got to boost this up bare minimum, right? So that people can start seeing that you're open, you've got to, open yourself up to work and all those things. But I just thought that was great advice, because if you're networking and you're actively engaging with the community, we just did an episode on your network is how you get work, right? And so I just thought that fed so beautifully into that. I am really interested, especially as women of color, negotiating doesn't come easy, right? And we know even just from data that we undervalue ourselves, right? Like we don't apply for the job until we have 100% of the requirements, checked off. Whereas Chad is like, yeah, I'm qualified for this. And he only meets 2 of the check boxes, right? So there are inherent differences, but I'm so intrigued by the fact that you're like, nope, I'm going to negotiate. So talk to us about where that confidence came from. And then of course we need to talk about your $100,000 sign-on bonus.
Okay. Oh, that's a lot. But the workshop I only do one masterclass. It's Nail Your Negotiation. And I offer that on a regular basis. nailyournegotiation.com.
We will link it in the show notes.
It's like an hour and a half. And I decided to offer that for free because, I think people walk into the negotiation masterclass expecting me to say, here's what you say when and if, and here's how to counter, and here's how to be a badass and how to have a firm handshake, blah, blah, blah. But I spend a lot of time talking about what happens before the negotiation, because what I found through my career and what I'm seeing every day through the careers of my Mandi Money Makers is how important it is, the platform you build for yourself to put you in a place of power when you get to the negotiating table. I think, honestly, and then to your point about all the statistics, like they'll tell you, we're going to earn less. We're not going to get senior roles. And when we do ask for more, we're going to get penalized because of unconscious bias. And all the data is true. And I was a reporter covering the same studies and putting those into the world. But I think if we let ourselves believe that has to be our story, then we lose that confidence. And for me, it was always pushing back. It was, okay, so what you're saying is I've got to work a little bit harder to get to yes, but I'm going to do that because what other option do I have? Like, I want to get really good at this so that I can start seeing results. And I think mindset's really important, especially as people of color. Like, if we get talking about pessimism, if you think too hard about what it means to wake up in this country, ain't none of us going to want to get out of bed.
Literally.
I mean?
Yeah.
I've had to explain that numerous times to people. I'm like, if I focus on like being a Black in America, then like, you're not going to want to be around me.
You'd just be in a safe room and they'd be feeding you through a little hole, and because you want to protect you at all costs, right? So for me, it's about, what do you have to gain by expecting the worst that everyone sort of expects of you? If we're constantly underestimated because of data, I just chose to overestimate myself and develop a why not me approach, and I think that mindset was really instrumental. I didn't let those statistics get me down. I didn't let the fact that when I tried to negotiate early in my career and I heard no, stop me from keeping on. It was more of like a challenge to, okay, what's it going to take to get to yes? And, you know, for so many of us, I think that, and for me, especially, like learning how to be a better negotiator came with practice. And I tell people all the time, I still negotiate. Like I'm negotiating a book deal. I negotiate brand deals. It's still kind of stressful. And sometimes I do hear no, you know what I mean? But I love the challenge and I love that opportunity. And I think if you stay complacent, you stay in the same role, you know, and you're not even pushing for higher promotions or salaries internally, then you're going to, you know, those skills will never really develop. So for me, I put myself into the fire, like I said, numerous times throughout my career, just so I could have a chance to get better and better. And it wasn't like my approach really changed with each time I negotiated, and I recognized my value changed every time I was in a new position or getting approached by another company. And I want to make it clear, I did quit 6 times in 10 years, but I only ever applied to one job throughout my career. Those opportunities came to me. And I recognize how important it is to be, like you say, be visible, you know, let people be really, I say, be kind and easy to find all the time, so that people will come to you and they'll know you as, you know, in your space, in your industry, in your skill set, and they will come to you with opportunities. That was a key to negotiating, was being wanted. And when I started to think of it that way, I'm like, oh, it's not about the question or asking. It's about how the person feels about you and how much they want you. And so how can I become the bright, shiny, sparkly thing that people are wanting? And it came through being really damn good at my job. That was key. Don't want to overlook that. Like,
yes,
good work.
skills matter.
Probably be good at your job. That's a good start. And then have, you know, develop new skills that made you more, you know, attractive to your next job. I studied print journalism. Like the only thing that college taught me how to do was write on paper. And it wasn't going to cut it. Okay. It was not cutting it in the digital media explosion. So I had to quickly build skills in video, podcasting, social media, SEO, content marketing. These are things that I learned throughout my career. And as I gained new knowledge and skill set, that is how you get to a place where, can I have $100,000 becomes a hell yeah, you know?
Yes.
But Mandi in 2010 was not going to get that signing bonus. Okay. Did I do a good job getting us to where you wanted me to go in this like Candyland game of questions?
It's like you've done this before or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, even at the end of the day, like, you know, the guarantee no is going to come if you don't ask.
Yes.
So
not asking is a choice, you know. That's
my motto is, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. Okay. So maybe I slide into Mandi's DMs and she never responds, or we're now sitting here and have a conversation, because what's the worst that can happen, you know?
I also love that, like, it's, I feel like it even starts from like a young age that us males, we tend to be overconfident in comparison to our actual skill set, when females tend to be underconfident in comparison to their skill set. You know, even like my mom's, like I said, my mom's a college professor, and she would talk about how, like, in elementary school, girls will only raise their hand if they are 100% certain that they know the correct answer. They won't raise their hand if they have any waiver in regards to whether or not they're right, as compared to boys, maybe 40%, 50%. And they'll take the chance.
Yeah. And I, you know, those, again, the statistics, it makes you kind of sad. God, I wish I had a girl. I want to create a great, but you know, I'll create great boys too. But
yeah, you can come borrow our daughter anytime.
You can create great boys that appreciate women
strong
like yourself,
and
or that maybe sometimes have a healthy sense of skepticism for their own intellect, or like stop and pause and question something before just blurting out an answer. Yeah, and it's interesting because I also think it's not just about, it's about the perception. Is it bad that girls don't raise their hand if they don't want it? Like, is it a bad trait to want to be sure and to want to understand something thoughtfully? And I don't think so. I think it's like our society also will value the people who are quick to have an answer, to be pithy, to be witty, to be, you know, to walk in and be tall and strong and confident. And that's just what our society sort of holds up as this model. And of course, women are just, and we're inherently different. And I'm at the place now where I think my generation, our generation is specifically, I hope, at least for me, really embraces the way that women approach decision making, investing. I mean, you guys pay for it. You got higher car insurance premiums, right? You're worse investors than us. We're better.
We are. We are.
So,
I read a book about, a lot of well-known historical, investors. And I was telling Jess that, statistically speaking, from the number standpoint, that women are better investors because they don't overestimate their ability.
yeah, we just set it and forget it.
Yeah, men tend to think that luck is skill.
Yeah.
And women do that.
Or that they can change their circumstances, that if they just get in there and they have, they tinker with things, that it'll work out better. Yeah, I mean, and I think there's a place in our society for both personalities. It's such a great yin and yang, but what I'm looking for is more appreciation for the way that women approach things, and more appreciation for the quiet ones, the introverted ones, more focus and attention on them, not making them feel bad for not being the first to raise their hand, but maybe instead of asking what's the answer, like, how would you get to an answer? What's your thought process? What more information do you need? God, if we just had more critical thinking education in this world.
Yes.
I thank God for my background in journalism, because it teaches you how to be skeptical and how to ask questions. But anyway, it's kind of getting more
nowadays.
yeah. But another reason why I love, I love working with women and pushing for senior positions, because I believe when we get to those roles, we can lead in our own way, not leaning on tropes of masculinity and like what it takes to be a leader and what it means, but to go in there and lead from our perspective and show how our version of leadership can be, as successful. So yeah, that's something that I think about a lot. Is it wrong the way that we do things, or is it just that, we have been, again, like lifting up this we've seen this like male way of doing things for so long, we think that's best, but is it really?
I mean, I would
conditioning, societal conditioning.
I would also even argue, like, since the beginning of time, it's been a male dominated world, and look where we're at now. So is it that good?
Yeah, we just a rib. You're the whole man. We just a rib, right?
Oh my gosh.
Am I getting my Sunday school lesson right?
Yeah.
Not the best.
Reach. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's go back to $100,000 sign-on bonus.
Okay.
And yes, just in case people have not heard the story, I do want them to hear the story.
Okay. The story is that by the time I got to that place in my career, this is for the dream job that didn't work out. But hey, if you're going to take a risk, make them pay.
Yes.
But a big reason why I got such a huge sign-on bonus is because I had spent 5 years working for a company that offered equity. And at that time, I literally had more than $100,000 of equity I was leaving on the table because it hadn't vested yet. So with equity, and I get this question a lot, so I don't want to take it for granted. Equity is when you are given a piece of giving shares in your company's stock as a form of incentive. So company is public and they get, or even private, they can also give you shares. And then you have this batch of equity, and you can't get it all at once, because that's why they call it the golden handcuffs.
Yep.
They give it to you incrementally over, in my case, it was over 3-year periods. So yeah, I had a bunch of money I was going to be leaving on the table. And on top of that, I really knew that they wanted me, and I really wanted that job. And I remember when I got the first offer, it was, the base salary was $225. The signing bonus was $50,000. And the equity was, I forget now, I have the screenshot anyway. And that's a great offer.
Yeah.
I was making $179. So it was a big, it was a decent base salary increase, and the sign-on bonus was fine. But I remember like not feeling like as excited about the offer as I was about the job itself. And I told that to the recruiter. I was like, hey, I think his name was Kevin. I was like, hey, Kevin, and it was the next day. And I was like, I got to be honest, like, I am so excited about this job. I know I'm going to kill it. I know that the team thinks I'm going to kill it. This offer does not exactly reflect how excited we all are about this opportunity. And I want to be more excited.
I actually like that wording. I think that's perfect. I think that's a perfect way to word it.
It's vulnerable, but
what
also
a baller.
I need you to level up. Yeah. I mean, the fact that, can we just pause for a second, that you were like, 225 base, $50,000 sign-on bonus, and you're like, I'm going to unsubscribe to this because you can do better. Like that is,
Well,
wow.
yeah. And at the time, like I had also been working in fintech for a while, and I had worked under a guy, my sponsor, my ally, whatever, his name's Nick, a white guy
That's
who
Nick.
was in banking for years of his career. And he used to always, and it was fun to work with him because he'd be like, 20K, just give it to him. Just, 50K, just give it to him. 5K, what is that? Why are we negotiating? Just give it to them. He made these like big, he made, he made me realize how money is just thrown around in some sectors, compensation wise all the time.
Yep.
And I think that I benefited from being in his presence a little bit. Now I still know I'm a woman of color, so I can't expect to get, the same kind of treatment, but I definitely, I'm looking at my phone to pull up the offer actually. Hold on, let me pull it up. But anyway, this all happened over the phone. So I like to negotiate by phone and then follow up by email. But yeah, the offer that came back, I think
So
it
not
was
face to face. Is that?
Well, it was the pandemic, so
Okay.
it wasn't happening. Oh, his name's Kyle, not Kevin. I was close. Yeah, so the base salary stayed the same. They increased the cash sign on from 50 to 125. So it was 125.
125.
And then I asked for equity, and I think that was an additional 100K in equity. Yeah. Anyway, so there's my startup capital for my business, and I thank them for it.
So did you accept the offer and then you left early, or did you never accept the offer? What happened?
Well, I can't really talk about the details of what happened after that because,
Yep.
lawsuits. But so I did accept the offer, and then I left not that long. I think I lasted a few months.
Okay.
And then another negotiation was negotiating the exit, which I don't know, maybe I'll feel brave enough to talk about that one day and say F you to the NDA. But for now, yeah, I will say that the negotiation skills served me again at the end, and made the best out of a, really shitty situation. And I sort of joked after that, like, did that happen, or did I just get like launched out of a rocket? Because I felt like it was just it was always meant to be that way. I had broken the fantasy of, I had been telling myself, I need this job to like legitimize myself and get chosen by a big brand, to work for them, and the brand that everyone knows and everyone loves. And I sort of told myself that this was the next chapter for me. This was the next step before I could do my own thing. And I needed this, and it would give me what I needed to get attraction from like a book offer and like the things that I really wanted to do was starting my own business. And it was just the way that it worked out. I realized all along that was just a story I had told myself, that I needed their brand, when really I had been building my own brand all along. I had everything that I already needed,
Imposter syndrome is real. I mean,
it's not so much imposter syndrome. It's just, again, it's that sense of wanting to feel prepared, like wanting to feel like I had gotten the experience that I wanted before I had moved on. And I felt like I needed another good run, even financially, and to build a brand for myself on my own. The job that I had before this was leading a team, being behind the scenes. This was more of a people-facing, public-facing role. And I was really excited to get to establish my public-facing persona on someone else's dime. But so having that not worked out was just a blessing in disguise, because I got to still build that persona, but entirely on my terms and in my own way, with no one questioning what I was saying, or is this okay with whoever is in power, So that's more where it came from, than a sense of not feeling like I was good enough to launch on my own.
I love it. I know we're coming up on time, so I want to be conscious of that, but I am interested in, aside from salary, stocks, sign-on bonuses, what are some of your favorite things to negotiate, or that you coach women on asking for?
I mean, these days, flexibility is really key, with the companies more and more moving back to the office, which is really disheartening, especially for women in senior positions. Like, do you not want us to thrive and to be able to have, these great leadership roles and still exist? So flexibility and remote work or hybrid work schedule is really important. Resources. So one of the things that I realized throughout my career that was important was to not just go after a big juicy salary. And I want to be clear, I never encourage people just to chase money, you want to
Mhm.
chase a good support when you get there, right? So what resources will you need to be successful in your role? And I think way too often, especially post 2020, a lot of companies, including the one that hired me so quickly after 2020, were really wanting to get women of color, people of color in places of, like bring them in, let's, yay, we're doing it, ticking that box,
Yeah.
but weren't thinking beyond just getting us on board. What kind of support do we then need to be able to survive and thrive? And so I put that onus on the women I coach to really think of what will you need to be successful in this role? Is it a professional development budget so that you can go to the conferences, you can continue upskilling, annually? Is it a contractor budget so you have, a fund that you can lean on to outsource some of your work so you can work smarter, not harder? So those
Mhm.
sorts of things. Is it headcount? Are you coming in to be the savior like we so often are?
Yeah.
And to save the broken thing, and let's bring in a Black woman, might as well. Or let's bring in a woman.
Throw her in there, guys. It's fine.
Yeah. It's not lost on me that Phantom of the Opera just closed on Broadway after 35 years of a successful run. And they had finally brought a Black woman to play the lead character. And I'm like, that's what happens. But
Mhm.
anyway, yeah. So it's understanding what you need to be successful. And for me, I really leaned on my relationships with other women in senior positions to like ask them, if you could go back, what would you ask for? And that's where I started to think about freelance budget, headcount, professional development. So it does help to keep your connections definitely warm and to, lean on them for advice, especially if they're in your field so they understand what you would need to really be successful. So I'm glad
Mhm.
you asked that because it's not just about salary.
Right. Yeah. And oftentimes it's so much more, like you said, the resources. It's funny you mentioned that. I have a friend who was just brought into a big national organization in the nonprofit space. And she basically was promised a certain budget, like $200,000. And then she was that was just for her team to do what she needed to do to be successful,
Nice.
which is why they brought her in. And then she just found out that that is the budget that is remaining for the entire organization for the year.
Okay.
So,
Well, budgets
right.
can
So she's
change.
not,
Budgets can
yeah.
change all the time. You can be promised you'll get headcount and then a recession happens and they're like, "Oh, we're not going to offer you headcount." I think you have to be like you're
Mhm.
in corporate. I mean, shit happens all the time and
Yep.
and there's people who negotiate these, you'll negotiate those types of benefits and you get in and it's a different story because someone leaves or new CEO comes in.
Yep.
Flexibility and rolling with the punches is so crucial. And even for the job
Mhm.
that you think is, I've got everything I've asked for, never sleep. Like keep your one eye open all the
Yeah.
time. Because even that may not end
Right.
up being the happy ending that you wanted it to be. Right.
Mhm.
So, like I say, it's this constant sort of balance of cautious optimism that, I encourage people in my community to move with.
I'm
Mhm.
gonna start using that cautious optimism. I'm
There
gonna start
you
using that
Right.
one.
Yeah, I
Yes.
love it. I
I'm
love
a
it.
realistic optimist. I'm always optimistic. I love having a 3-year-old because it's just so fun. They make you just be positive all the time and think of things in a fun way. And I don't know. I like that mentality, but I don't want to like I said, I just don't want to set people up. I want you to be prepared and you have to
Mhm.
think about,
You have to operate in the reality of what is also.
exactly.
Yeah. And the reality right now is if you spend any time on LinkedIn, it's layoffs. So how
Mhm.
are you going to pivot and find your next role when that happens
Yeah.
or if that happens? Yeah.
I
Okay.
like to-
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like to think that the women that I coach have been ready for this moment for the past couple of years since I've been coaching them because, it's not a matter of if, but when. Things are cyclical.
Mhm.
The stock market goes up, it goes down. I've been through a few crashes myself. Like you start to anticipate those lulls and the waves. And if you start to anticipate it, you get wiser. And these kinds of dips, they don't scare you as much because you know that it's coming and you prepare for it.
Mhm. No, it's great advice. Be prepared, be optimistic, be cautious. I think it's a good trifecta. You are working on a book. Can you talk to us about it? Yeah.
I can't, I mean, I would, yes, I can talk to you about it. I've been working on the book for the last year and, it really did take, I think in June, that was when I started, I hired a book coach, a book proposal coach. Cause when you're writing like a nonfiction book, you have to start from a really extensive outline. called the proposal. So they can actually see what the book is going to be. Whereas if you're writing fiction, maybe it's a few chapters or a manuscript, you write it and then you show it to. Anyway, so I hired a proposal coach to give me structure so I could get the thing done, because I know myself, I need a deadline. And yeah, from hiring that coach to finishing the proposal in the fall, to shopping it to literary agents in the winter, to now we're in spring and I'm shopping it to, now the agents are shopping it to publishers. That's where I'm at on the journey. And I hope to have a deal by the end of like this month. So fingers triple dipple crossed.
Yes, fingers, eyes, toes.
But it feels good. I'm really happy. But I don't, again, it's not like an overnight thing. It's been a year just to get to the point where you get a deal. And then I got 2 years to write it and publish it, you know? So I'm a turtle, not the hare.
Is it all about negotiating or quitting strategically?
It is a lot about quitting. So, you know, my mantra has always been quit your way rich. So that's my working title right now, how to quit your way rich. But it's, you know, it's everything. It's, you know, how to position yourself so that you get great opportunities. And yes, there's a chapter on negotiating, but also what to do if you say no, and how to, you know, how to go from working in roles that are sort of thankless and changing your mindset to be open to opportunities that can help you grow, and how do you actually pivot and learn new skills and get into a new career path. I'm hoping it's for it's for every woman who's working and needs a kick in the butt and needs to know that they're capable of more. And I'm really proud of it. I mean, I haven't written the full thing yet, but it's burning in me to get this book out there. So I'm really, really excited. So stay tuned.
Yes, I can't wait to read it.
That's exciting.
We'll be pre-ordering when it's available.
You know, just thinking about how society always, you know, tells women, especially women of color, just to, you know, exist, but not, you know.
Don't ask for too much.
Yes, don't ask for too much.
Don't expect too much. Be thankful. Be grateful.
Be grateful you're in the company photo, add in some melanin. And if you ask for, it's okay to ask for a spot, but don't ask for, you know, the nice chair. Don't ask to be at the front of the table, because then it's too much. And how dare you? And don't you know your place? Yeah, that shit still happens. So we ain't about that. We are not about that.
We run our household, and that's not how we're teaching our children at all.
Absolutely not. This episode is filled with so many gems and so much great advice, but one more time to put you on the spot, we do want to leave our listeners with a final takeaway. What do you want our listeners to know today?
I think I want you to know that you are in control of a lot more when it comes to your career than they want you to believe that you are. And if you stop stressing about things that are out of your control, like the market and your boss's toxicity and the company strategy, and you start focusing on what you can control, like building a professional brand that gets people excited about you, putting your work out into the world, building your network so that you have a strong support system to help you find new opportunities. That's what you can control. And that's really the key, is just focusing on those elements. And it's up to us whether we decide that statistics and the stories that the media will tell us about our, the likelihood of us being successful and getting to that next level is going to be true for us or not. And I encourage everyone to think not, that you can blow past those expectations.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mandi, for being with us today. We so appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.